warned of global cooling and a coming ice age in the 70s. In hindsight, it would appear the hype of that theory outkicked its coverage. By the late 80s, the concern had shifted to global warming, which in turn gave way to the now ubiquitous climate change. Skeptics have long questioned the science behind the alarmists' claims, particularly as said science so often smacks of the political variety rather than an objective, observational, evidence-based study of our world and the impacts we may have on it. Unfortunately, as with most issues these days, climate change has become yet another political football, with Team Blue and Team Red locked in an unending scrimmage, the fallout of which includes bad policy and silly online memes and quips. In the midst of a blizzard, or is that called bombogenesis these days, a skeptic might wryly remark on all the global warming falling from the sky. Don't confuse weather for climate, come the rapid retorts. Fair enough. While those two concepts are related, they are not one and the same. In the same vein, a hurricane walloping Florida, and even temporarily sucking water out of a bay, is not climate change. It's weather. Bad weather. And it too shall pass.
Susie Moore is Deputy Managing Editor for RedState.com. For more to the point and everything Susie Moore, log on to RedState.com. Follow Susie on Twitter at SmoozyQ and keep listening to 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. The news and talk.
Inflation remains well above 2%.
We do expect we're going to be in for tougher times ahead.
That matters to St. Louis.
Raised interest rate by 0.75 percentage point.
This is 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
And welcome into the October 3rd, Monday edition of the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. My partner, Tim Jones, is out today, but joining me shortly will be Paul Kirkman, host of the Paul Kirkman Show, every Saturday at noon. Mm-hmm. I always say morning, but every Saturday at noon, the Paul Kirkman Show, and he will be joining me for the next 3 hours. Always in studio with me for the next couple of weeks at least. I'm getting sad. Katie, how are you?
I am doing great, Chris. Don't be sad.
I am sad. That's going to be a long 3 months. But anyway, I keep putting it off. You know, I do. I am like in complete denial. I told you, Katie has sent an email out to us giving us instructions on how to handle the show in her absence. And I think she sent that about 2 weeks ago. And I have yet to open it.
You know what I have to say? I know that Becky Arps will have you open that email. I know she will.
When's your last day?
Well, if she comes earlier, then it could be. I mean, I have 2 more weeks basically. But we don't know. She could come early. She could come late. So we're living in the world of about 2 weeks.
So I should basically start opening the email and trying to familiarize myself with how our show is going to go after in your absence. I don't know how we're going to survive. I tell you.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I tell you, people that listen to our show, hear me complain about cold weather, and I hate fall, the leaves changing, and you get that little nip in the air. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, today, 75, you can feel that slight little nip in the air. Mm-hmm. But I could deal with this. But,
okay, and
there is a big but.
Okay.
I need 90 to 95% sunshine.
Okay.
And that can't be guaranteed in the fall.
That is, I am with you on this. I am with you absolutely on this. I love fall. We've been talking about it this whole time. But the sunshine plays a big factor. The sunshine plays a big. And when we, like last year, when we were walking out of this building and it was 4:30 in the afternoon and it was pitch black, you, me, and Tim were all like, oh, dear God.
It was depressing. I have a portable little sun lamp. And, you're only supposed to use it, I think, for like 15 or 20 minutes, and it has a timer where it automatically cuts off. Or you can just leave the thing on and it stays on forever. You know which mode I was. You know which mode I was in. I was like
cranking it.
15 minutes. I need this thing for at least 2 or 3 hours, man. Sunshine, but yeah, beautiful day. I'm in a good mood because my Dallas Cowboys are 3-0.
There you go.
So that makes me happy. And joining us in the studio, Paul Kirkman. How are you, Mr. Kirkman?
I'm super good.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you didn't forget me today. You have a tendency to.
Chris, you're unforgettable. You're unforgettable.
I had to go there. Everything going good with you?
Yeah, everything's going really good. Thanks.
Good. A lot of big things going on in the news. Of course, was the opening of the Supreme Court term. We'll get into that during the show. There's a lot of interesting decisions dealing with Mike Lindell, with bump stocks, other things. Here's something, Katie, you may not remember this. You were 9 years old in 4th grade, but Paul, you're getting a little long in the tooth. You'll remember it. Remember?
You're old, Paul.
Well, that's
old man.
That's a good way of putting it. Remember about 20 years ago in Washington, D.C., when people were getting shot at gas stations?
Yeah.
And 5 people were killed today. The Washington, D.C. sniper. Do you remember that, Katie?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, there was a period for about 2 months.
It was crazy.
And there were people that were being shot, killed at gas stations while they were pumping gas. And come to find out, it was this guy named Lloyd Malvo, who was a juvenile at the time, and this other guy who was a kind of a loon, had been in the service, and they were driving around the D.C. area shooting people. And the way they would do it, they had a little cutout in the back of the car. One of them would be in the trunk, and he would aim the gun out of the trunk and kill people. And I think they ended up killing 10 people.
One guy got shot mowing his lawn. Like, you weren't safe anywhere. One lady got killed at Home Depot.
Yeah.
Another lady got killed, I think, just putting groceries in the back of her car in a parking lot. Just all over the place, too.
Just chaos?
Absolute chaos. People in like a 50-mile stretch of highway were just afraid to leave their homes.
And put it into context, Katie, this is like less than a year after 9/11.
Oh, my God.
So people are thinking that this may be terrorist groups
attack.
that are doing this, and then it came to be these 2 gentlemen. The older gentleman was executed, I think, about. Katie's like, yes, he was.
He went to prison and he was executed.
Yes, he was. He was executed.
He had what is that? The lethal injection? Or
I think he did get a lethal injection.
Whoa.
And the juvenile at the time, he's got like a life sentence, and he may get out. Who knows when? But that was a very frightening time in our history.
Cold, like cold-blooded. The juvenile, he was asked about one of the people he shot, and then his response was, "Yeah, that was a good shot."
Oh,
these were cold-blooded people.
Oh my gosh, they're not even human beings. It's like, how are you a human?
And the juvenile was like under the spell of the older gentleman, John Muhammad, I think that was his name. Lee Malvo was an immigrant from the Caribbean. Didn't have a father, didn't have much of family. So this guy became like a father figure to him, and basically taught him how to murder. I mean, I think, wasn't Lee Malvo the young kid? Wasn't he the one that did most of the shooting, Paul? It wasn't
he was in the trunk of the car.
Yeah.
And they only got caught because a police officer, I think, pulled them over for having like a taillight out or something. And that's when he noticed, hey, this car matches the description. And then they realized, oh, that taillight's out because that's what they're shooting from.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Wow. Yeah, he's like, you don't remember that. You were about.
I mean,
that was 20 years ago today that they killed 5 people.
I was 9. I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
At that time.
You know, they believe that it's possible. So the older guy, the older DC sniper, John Muhammad, he and his wife got a divorce, and I think his wife had custody of the child, and they think this is like part of the Jack Reacher, Tom Cruise story, like literally story. Okay. Some people think he was killing people at random, and then he was also going to kill his wife so he could get custody, and they wouldn't trace it back to him because she was just one of several victims.
Yeah, and it's just so hard to imagine that was 20 years ago.
20 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, what a traumatizing time.
It was dramatic that whole time.
Exactly. Well, we got a big show today. We'll lighten it up some during the day. Of course, we're going to talk. He's like, please.
I'm scared now.
Of course, we're going to talk some politics. Coming up, we're going to have David Barklage. Now, those who are involved in politics, kind of insiders, will know who he is. But those of you don't, many of the campaigns that you are supporting locally and statewide, he is consulting on them. We're going to get his take on the Missouri special session. We'll get his take on Amendment 3. And we'll also talk about the Senate race when we come back. We're also going to have always Jim Talent and Susie Moore at 5:24. Don't go away. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Want to save big on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Shop Blindster and save 45% off any order. Just use the code RADIO. Offer ends soon. Shop Blindster.com. Northbound 270 south of 70, they have completely cleared an accident from the right lanes. It was from earlier this afternoon, and you're slow in those right lanes between Dorset and 70. Westbound 70 slow into Cave Springs, construction in the left lane. Eastbound 70, delays crossing the Musial Veterans Bridge. That's construction in the left lane. Southbound 55, filling in between 44 and Potomac. An accident on Manchester between Old State and Clarkson, jamming traffic in both directions, and construction both east and westbound 64 at Illinois 161. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
Let's hope this pattern never ends, huh? Unfortunately, we know it will, but a beautiful day out there on this Monday. 75 degrees under sunny skies. Beautiful. Little breeze out of the east. Lows tonight in the 40s. A little warmer tomorrow, 77 up to 80 by Wednesday. A little cool front moves through here on Thursday. Very little, if any, rain anticipated. By the weekend, it will get cooler, though. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
So many ways to listen to News Talk STL.
Join the conversation. All you have to do is say,
Hey Alexa, play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
Hey, this is Chris Arps, and I'm telling you about our state-of-the-art facility over at the Dental Link, my personal dentist. They offer a full range of dental services, including cosmetic and implant dentistry. If you have listened to me over the last few weeks, you've heard the process of the dental implants that I am getting. I am done with the first phase and looking forward to the second phase to have that Hollywood chiclet smile all ready for holidays, and that's just a joke. You know, if you are missing one or more teeth or suffer from loose dentures, mini dental implants might be the solution for you. Mini dental implants are less invasive, less painful, and your recovery time is much shorter. Plus, best of all, the cost to you is much less than with older, more traditional dental implants. 2 convenient locations in Baldwin and Melville. Call the Dental Link today at 314-794-6464, 314-794-6464, thedentallink.com.
Since 2007, the state of Missouri and local governments have handed out almost $5 billion in tax subsidies or abatements to private developers. That money could have gone to basic services like schools and public safety. And studies show these subsidies don't produce the promised jobs and growth. If developers want to build a sports stadium or shopping mall, why should they be given our tax dollars to do it? It's time to reform economic development subsidies. The Show Me message has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
If you believe Brandon and the supply chain issues are still in crisis, or even if you don't, hurry into Southern Armory, your Second Amendment headquarters, for the best selection of firearms, suppressors, holsters, ammunition, pepper spray, and knives. Browse through our constantly changing inventory, order something special, or have us repair or modify that firearm that you've been putting off. Try our firearms training simulator. See the demo video on our website. Come into Southern Armory, 9901 Watson Road, 1 mile east of 270 and 44, at southernarmory.com. That's southernarmory.com.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
How would St. Louis County and the St. Louis region be different if Mark Mantovani wins the election in November? We're going to hear from him on Tuesday's program.
Mornings starting at 5:30
on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
He will be back tomorrow, and filling in is Paul Kurtman of the Paul Kurtman Show. You can hear him every Saturday from 12 to 1 o'clock here on these here airways. Like that English there, Katie?
I love it.
Excited to have our next guest. He's a first-time guest. He is David Barklage. He is a Missouri Republican political consultant. He has his pulse on pretty much what's going on in Missouri politics. And David, glad to have you on today, sir.
Well, I didn't know this was going to be an aggressive interview where you start name calling me up front as tagging me as a consultant. But so be it.
What do you want me to call you, Godfather? Or, I mean, what term
I
would
like
you
that
prefer?
one.
That's a good one.
If the name fits, I guess I have to own it. So I'll just take the abuse up front.
Got it. And as I said earlier, Paul Kurtman is in the studio with me. He's going to ask you a couple of questions as well.
Paul, how are you doing? So you brought real brain power into this interview. I hope I don't disappoint you.
Well, he's taking up for my half, so that I'm missing. Hey, we got a special session that's currently going on right now in the legislature, and a lot of people may not be following it too closely. There has been some stuff that's leaked out about there will be a tax cut. But what else is going on? What else is going on in this special session? And give us the inside scoop.
Well, I think there was a lot of people betting that it wouldn't happen. And I think that is symbolic of a Republican Party, after a couple of decades in a majority, for the first time in literally 50 years prior to that, and only 6 years total prior to 2000 were Republicans in power in the state of Missouri. And so I think after being in power for 20 years, something's never been done before. There's been factions of the party and some distance, but we heard a whole lot of people saying, oh my God, is this going to happen? Well, the governor, two things. One, the governor vetoed, which I think he should have done, a tax credit, which was a one-time check. It seems odd about government sending money out. They collect your money, then they turn around and send it out at a cost. It doesn't make a lot of sense to many conservatives, and to that regard, the governor vetoed that plan, but then wanted to make sure that something more permanent occurred. And so he proposed a special session. He proposed that there be a guideline of a $700 million annual permanent tax cut in one form or another, and ask the legislators to convene, as well as consider some tax credits in agriculture. So, to that regard, the legislature has met. The Senate has passed both. The House has now passed both, and the tax credit. And so now, the House has passed both as well. So now it goes to conference committee, and I believe they're going to pick up the House tax credit bill for farmers and agriculture industry, and then use the Senate tax cut as the two core bills that they'll send on to the governor. And so what you're going to effectively have is a permanent tax cut that reduces the marginal rate of taxes significantly. And when I say significantly, what people don't understand, the Missouri tax code has like 9 different brackets, but all those brackets exist from $1,000 to about $9,000. So all brackets are going to receive a tax cut. It's going to take the effective rate down almost 10%, and I would consider that significant. And the impact on the economy we have seen has been very good. Governor Parson has effectively focused on 3 legs of an economy, and those 3 legs are workforce development, getting a better workforce, more qualified, getting taxes cut. This would be the 3rd tax cut, and then the last thing is infrastructure, investing in infrastructure. So you have those 3 things. We've seen the Missouri economy grow very steadily against what we've seen with President Biden and his plan for inflation and spending.
Hey, David, I got a question to ask you about this because I've heard people raise this question. Usually you hear this question coming from the left. They always like to compare Missouri with Kansas, and anything that we do to cut taxes, they always want to say, well, Kansas tried this and it was a disaster. How has the legislature addressed this issue to make sure that we don't have tax cuts that kind of get out ahead of other sound fiscal measures that we need to take? Is it even comparable to what's happening in Kansas?
Of course not, and as I know you two would agree that comparing us to Kansas, of course we don't want to be Kansas in any way, shape, or form. We're much better than that. I think the key is this: is that like Kansas tried to go too far, too quick, and I would argue that you can be a conservative and you can have that goal. But there's nothing less conservative about, especially when it's in a financial area, stepping that goal in. I mean, Paul, you were a very consistent fiscal conservative while in the legislature. I think you would agree with this, that cutting effective rate 10% and maybe putting steps in and continue to cut it under certain financial, hallmarks or benchmarks makes a lot of sense. That way we're starving additional spending by doing it incrementally, but we're not putting really anything at risk. And so I think the right way to cut taxes, and there's some things in terms of conservative policy that make sense to do all at once, but I think when you're dealing with an economy that's elastic and can go, back or forward, have a recession, that it's more prudent fiscally to create a model that you show restraint, but you constantly move the ball down the field to reduce the effective tax rate and then starving unnecessary or wasteful spending.
Speaking with David Barklage, well-known Missouri Republican political consultant, getting his thoughts on all things Missouri politics. David, one of the most closely watched races in the state is this George Haruza Senate race. It's a chance for Republicans to flip a Democratic seat. Give us your call on that and talk a little bit about George Haruza.
Well, I think it's clearly it's in a suburban area, which is critical to both parties. So it's going to be quite a contest. It stretches from all the way from Richmond Heights, from Maryland Heights all the way down to Fenton. So it goes from St. Charles County all the way down to the Jefferson County border. It cuts through that central area that's become much more progressive and Democrat, but Eric Schmidt won it. We had Scott Fitzpatrick won it. Jay Ashcroft won it. Many Republicans have won it marginally, and many Democrats have won it marginally. So it splits out fairly equal. I think the real key is that this is an off-election year, presidential election year. To that regard, typically Republican turnout has favored us. So I like those odds, 1. 2, he fits the profile. He's highly educated. He's a first-generation immigrant, which I'll talk about in a second. But a doctor, he's married to a doctor. One of the hallmarks, I believe, of a candidate that looks and sounds a lot like the district, which is important to winning. And the Republican committee is committed, and they're going to be spending money, and George is raising money. But the real, core of this campaign, I believe, is very few campaigns are really about consultants like myself. They're really about the candidate. And we might like to convince people in our pitch that we can get you elected, but if you are a good candidate and a better leader, I think the people see that. And I still think that's American politics today. This guy is the original American success story. He came over, let me just take you back here. All four of his great-grandparents were murdered at Auschwitz. Of his mother were murdered in Auschwitz. His mother was in a concentration camp. She was freed by Patton's army, made it back at 68 pounds to Czechoslovakia, where they were effectively enslaved by a communist authoritarian regime. They fled that country, risking themselves with very little to cross Europe. Took 4 years to get to America. Without barely even understanding English, he was able, because of his math scores, to get into a high school, excelled, became a doctor, a surgeon, a world-renowned surgeon, a successful businessman, a teacher. I mean, just an incredible success story. I mean, that's the kind of person that we should be electing, and I think the people will see that story. And who's he running against? He's running against a very kind soul. I have no argument about people like Tracy McQuarrie, but she's a NARAL activist, and so I'll just hit abortion guys directly on the head. You've got a NARAL activist, and what does that mean? That means that she's for partial birth abortion.
Right.
That means that she's for after birth abortion, something that people don't even fathom. That NARAL thinks that you should be able to, under the term of a post-abortion, allow a baby to die after it's been born, right, if it's part of an abortion, things like that. Those are the kind of policies, radicalization that she represents.
Excellent.
And so she's the radical in this race. And the last thing I'll say is,
David,
she's a current politician.
We're coming up against a hard break there, but I want to give folks, if they want to hear more of your wisdom, you can give out your Twitter page there, or any way people can follow you.
I'm sorry, I'm coughing.
Don't get choked up there, David.
I'm on Twitter, but I actually never post because I think everybody talks to themselves. So hopefully maybe I'll have the opportunity on the show again.
Thank you, David, so much for being on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. Really appreciate it. Stick around when we come back. We've got more on the show at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Are you tired of hard chlorinated water drying your skin out, tasting bad, and ruining your fixtures? Jones Air and Water Treatment has a solution to this pollution. Our Hydratech H2O leaves you with great tasting, soft water at all fixtures in your home with one unit. Call Jones Air and Water at 636-899-1040 or visit us on the web at joneswater.com. You can be a filter or buy a filter. Jones Air and Water, 636-899-1040 or joneswater.com on the web. Call us now.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at
newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. People throughout Florida, the Carolinas, and Virginia are still feeling the effects of Hurricane Ian. Florida's Director of Emergency Management, Kevin Guthrie, says about 600,000 households and businesses are without power, but they have a plan to restore utilities to locations that were only lightly damaged by the storm.
I want 75% of that the individuals that can receive water restored in 5 days,
and I want 100% of those that can receive water returned by Sunday, which happens to be the same day that electrical individuals say that they will have most of the restoration done to homes that can receive that.
Officials warned there was still the potential for severe flooding along Virginia's coast, and coastal flooding was possible from the North Carolina Outer Banks to Long Island. Florida GOP Senator Marco Rubio is warning against lawmakers including pork barrel spending in a relief package for Hurricane Ian. Bob Agnew reports.
Senator Rubio says he'll vote against a federal aid bill for his state if it includes pork spending projects unrelated to the storm. Sure, he told CNN's Dana Bash, I'll fight against it having pork in it. Rubio noted he's voted against hurricane relief bills in the past that were loaded with pork and in favor of all that were not. Florida took a pounding last week from Ian when it blew ashore as a Category 4 hurricane, leaving nearly 50 people dead. Bob Agnew reporting.
Ukrainian forces have scored more gains in their counteroffensive across a broad front. The troops advanced Monday in the very areas Russia's trying to absorb. Their breakthroughs challenged Russia's effort to engage fresh troops and its threats to defend incorporated areas by all means, including with nuclear weapons. Ukrainian forces penetrated Moscow's defenses in the strategic southern Kherson region, one of the 4 areas Russia is annexing. A good day on Wall Street as the Dow up by 675 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-940-6161. That's 1-800-940-6161. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-940-6161. SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds, easy to install, guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop and save big at Blindster.com. They cleared the earlier accident northbound 270 south of 70. Some volume in those right lanes heading into 70. Westbound 70 slows Umbel to Cave Springs. There's an accident southbound 270 at Manchester. That's jamming traffic at Ladue. Delays eastbound 70 crossing the Museo Veterans Bridge. The left lane is down just past the bridge. Volume eastbound 270 between 170 and New Florissant. They cleared the accident east and westbound Manchester between Old State and Clarkson. Construction jams north and southbound Illinois Route 3 at South Main Street in Columbia. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
Let's hope this pattern never ends, huh? Unfortunately, we know it will, but a beautiful day out there on this Monday. 75 degrees under sunny skies. Beautiful. Little breeze out of the east. Lows tonight in the 40s. A little warmer tomorrow, 77 up to 80 by Wednesday. A little cool front moves through here on Thursday. Very little, if any, rain anticipated. By the weekend, it will get cooler, though. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
What a great meeting. I loved everything he said. I think we found our new financial advisor.
I hated him.
What? Why?
He never even looked at me.
It's a story that's been repeated over and over in the financial industry. And it's the reason Deanna Orff at the All Financial Group is so passionate to change it. That's why on October 18th, she's hosting an exclusive women's event called Women in Wealth. It's an open forum for you to learn more about markets, investing, and planning for retirement, and a setting where you can ask questions. It's a fact that 90% of women will at some point be solely responsible for their finances. This could be a great first step. The Women in Wealth event on October 18th. It's free, but you do need to make a reservation. So call 636-230-8824. That's 636-230-8824. Or go to yourmoneymattersstl.com.
Investment advisory services offered through All Financial Group LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance and annuity products are offered through Stephen All, Missouri license 8039738.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Listen to this noise coming out of the White House.
Live and local.
We need to get the message to people who are not being helped by Democrats.
Ron DeSantis showed people the back of his hand.
This is News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
What is that solution? Can you understand the frustration, though, that Americans have about the situation at the border?
It's not a monolith. There are a variety of components to this. One is the fact that under the previous administration, they decimated a system that was designed to address immigration. And so we have been spending, in the last 18 months we've been in office, spending an incredible amount of time and work and resources to reconstruct that system. I'm in charge, for example, of coordinating what we call a root causes strategy. What are the causes of people leaving? We have now raised $3.2 billion to help the folks in those countries stay.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. Tim Jones is out today, but he will be back tomorrow. Joining me in the studio is Paul Kirkman from the Paul Kirkman Show every Saturday from 12 to 1 o'clock. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Katie, how are you?
I am excellent.
Got to get all
Thank
those
you.
pleasantries and formalities out of the way. That was Vice President Kamala Harris, of course, taking no responsibility for the border crisis, claiming that it is the prior administration's fault. And that's one of those times where I just scream at the TV or scream listening to the cut where I wish I was a reporter and could ask them follow-up questions, because you claim, Vice President, that you've done this and this and this. This is what you and the administration have done to secure the border because it's been decimated by Trump. And there needs to be some follow-up, Paul, where the reporter says, okay, can you tell us exactly what have you done?
Yeah, they don't follow up anymore. I feel like early on they were really following up on things about the border. Like they actually asked her, have you been to the border? But where's all the hard questions? Where'd they go?
I mean, is it a tough question to say, Vice President, you have visited the Ukrainian border, you have visited the South Korean, North Korea DMZ border, but you have not visited our own border, and you are the so-called what do you go? The
border czar.
The border
Border
czar.
czar.
That
Yeah.
that's a good question. I tell you one way that I think to get her attention, and I think the governors of Texas and Florida have done that by shipping some of these migrants up north. Well, there's a story here in CNN that another busload of migrants arrived at the U.S. Naval Observatory. That is the official home of the vice president. The 46 migrants, single adults and families, were moved to a nearby church for assistance, said Tatiana Laborde, managing director at SAMU First Response, which has been assisting arriving migrants. Paul, I mean, this, you can't, this clearly illustrates the problem when they're put on their doorsteps. I mean, how effective do you think this will continue to be? Will it continue to get old, or will the Democrats be able to change their narrative so people will agree that this is mean, sending people on air-conditioned buses up to a place where they want to go?
I don't think it's going to get old. I don't think it is. I think we're going to continue to see the left-wing media blast people like Ron DeSantis and Governor Abbott. You got this sheriff out of Texas trying to press charges against Ron DeSantis. It's absolutely insane. But we know that it's a very real situation for the people on the ground in those communities that previously had really virtue signaled to the rest of the country that they're a sanctuary city. But now their tunes are beginning to change. We're hearing that from the mayor of Washington, D.C., the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, her tunes changing also. I think if they keep pushing this strategy, they're going to force these Democrats to put their money where their mouth is, and or just change opinion and start lobbying for a tighter border along with the conservatives.
Speaking of mouth, our illustrious vice president or president Biden has done this recently. The Democrats are bleeding Hispanic support big time, and I love this. And I was listening to one of the Sunday shows this weekend, and they illustrated it perfectly. And it's what I have said so much. And I've said this when it comes to African Americans. This is what we need to do. She said that the Latinos are no longer voting their ethnicity; they're starting to vote their class. And that if you have someone that may be of an entrepreneurial more bent, more family values in that sense, they may be a conservative. Someone else who may be a blue collar worker, maybe share those values. They are going to be a Democrat. And, I've always said this about African Americans coming to the Republican Party. I never want African Americans to come wholesale to the Republican Party. We should be represented in both parties so that both parties fight for our vote. And I've said this 1,000 times, that if African Americans made a wholesale jump to the Republican Party, we'd have what we have now. We have one party that ignores us because they know they already have our vote, and another party ignores us because they think they'll never have our vote. And I've said this so many times to local leaders here, Democratic leaders. You know what would happen if just one time that that African Americans voted for a Republican congressman or a Republican senator? Do you know how the Democratic Party would fight in the next election cycle and election cycles to get that vote back? And then you'd have the Republicans who historically gaining that vote would fight just as equally hard to keep that vote. You get African Americans would write their ticket, whatever you want. I said this during Donald Trump's presidency. And look, I understand a lot of people can't get over the birtherism and the Central Park case. I get that. I'm looking at this strictly as a pragmatic thing, that Donald Trump is a person that likes to be loved. Donald Trump is a person that wants to be the first at things. Donald Trump wants to have adulation. Just think if black people would have given him half a chance, and how he would have bent over backwards probably to give black people whatever they want. So they can say, yeah, I'm the first. I've done this for you. I've done this. I've done that. But people are so caught up in hatred and personality. I get that, but I'm in politics, man. Play the game.
You could have used the personality. You could have used it.
Exactly. Be pragmatic. Play the game. And African Americans play the political game horribly.
Do you think that there's an opportunity for somebody like Governor Parson, for example, spend time in St. Louis or Kansas City? Do you think that would make a difference? Because I've heard people say, and I've heard Republicans and consultants say, it's too far gone. It doesn't matter what we do there. It's just not going to happen. Because they're voting for Cory Bush. There's no way we'll ever win anybody over.
The thing is that you have to not come into the African American community in October of an election year and try to make inroads. You have to start well in advance of that, and that's something that the Republican Party has been very poor at doing. And look, as a political consultant, I get that. Paul, you understand as a politician. The last thing that you want to recovering. The last thing you want to do is lose a close race, because you spent X amount of dollars on this and you really didn't get anything out of it. And you're like, oh, if I wouldn't have spent that money on black outreach, maybe I could have spent it here and I've kind of won. And I think that's why you don't see long-term things to try to get the black
changes in the demographic, right? Like how they're going to vote. I kind of feel, though, that all voters can share that sentiment in common because I feel like people have campaigned for my vote, but they don't want to build a relationship. And I kind of think that that's the difference. And if they're just campaigning for your vote, it's like they're just asking you for a favor. They don't really want to give anything in return. Campaigns can seem really disingenuous if you only hear from somebody once every couple of years.
I'll tell you one thing, and I know we got a caller in here, and we'll get to you. I tell you one thing that I'll always remember and treasure and will never forget. I guess that's the same thing. I'm being redundant. But I was a field representative for Jim Talent here in the eastern part of Missouri. And a couple of years prior to his reelection, we started a campaign of attending black churches. We chose probably about 4 or 5 black churches that were friendly. They were Democrats, but they were friendly to the senator. And he would go to one of these churches once a month so that every few months, we'd be back at the same church and just, be a continuing cycle. When Jim Talon went to these churches, never asked to speak, never asked to made a big deal out of it. He just showed up to say, hey, that we may be of a different political party, but I am still your U.S. Senator. I do care about things that you are concerned about, and I just want you to know that even though we don't share the same political faith, we do share the Christian faith. Jim Talon's a very strong Christian. And I'll just never forget, Paul, that at the end of the service, now these are black people, completely African-American church, at the end of the service, there would be a line of people waiting to shake Jim Talon's hand.
I have the chills.
At the end,
so cool.
at the end of the service. Not talking politics or nothing. They were just so appreciative that wow, you took your time out to come to our church. We really appreciate that. No politics ever discussed.
God, I have the chills.
Because it's somebody who doesn't have to do that. They're doing it because they want to demonstrate that they care. And it's like they say in sales, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's a big part of actually winning the hearts and minds of people.
Never asked to speak one time. This wasn't a political thing. This was a thing to show that, hey, I care about you and we share a Christian faith. And, I want to show you that I respect you. We got Sean on the line. He has an idea of what Republicans need to do. Sean, how are you, sir?
I am doing wonderful. Love the show, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I really do believe that the Republicans aren't doing enough in the city of St. Louis. Never, I live on the south side, and never once has a Republican come to my door. I mean, I've actually gone to them, but there are no, you don't even get Republican literature over on the south side of St. Louis.
I think Paul will agree with this. Within the Republican Party, the St. Louis City Republicans are unfortunately, and I don't mean to disparage them, they're kind of looked upon as the redheaded stepchildren of the Republican Party, unfortunately, and don't get the time and attention and resources that they deserve. I think the city is ripe for Republican leadership. I think there's a lot of people that share our values, but again, it goes back to what I say about black outreach. They just don't think it's worth the time, even city Republicans, so they don't pursue it, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know if it's they're too afraid of losing over here in the city. I mean, but we as Republicans need to step it up more. It's just ridiculous. There's just so little knowledge being passed to people, and you always see Democratic literature on every door in St. Louis City when it's time for election. So,
Sean, are you involved with your St. Louis City Central Committee, Republican Committee?
I do work for the election board. I'm trying to get off on the first and third Thursday of every month to start going to meetings. But I mean, it almost seems like a waste of time to go to the meeting because, the Republicans do great in a room full of themselves talking about politics, but unless you're out there in the community actually educating others, you're just wasting your time.
I would encourage you, Paul. I've been to some of the meetings at the police union's headquarters down there on Hampton, and those places are packed. And there are all Republicans, but they're energized. And I've seen African Americans, I've seen people of all colors and stripes at that meeting. It's been very, very encouraging.
Well, Chris, I know your wife is working on the Andrew Jones campaign right now, and I will volunteer my time gladly any day I'm off to go and knock doors.
Excellent.
So, I mean, Vic has my email address and Kim has my email address. Please, I will go knock doors all over the city for them. No neighborhood is untouchable. Just get out there and speak.
Sean, hopefully, I think she is. My wife is listening, so I'm sure that she will be contacting you. Thank you so much, Sean, for calling.
All right, no worries, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
And I'll put that friendly disclaimer. Yes, my wife, Becky Arps, is the campaign manager for Andrew Jones for Congress.
But thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
That is the passion, and that is what we need as Republicans to say there is no neighborhood that I will not go into to spread the word and to spread the message about this. That passion is exactly what we need to keep driving us. And that's amazing that he listens to this show and this station.
I still wouldn't send Sean to the 63115 area code.
That's all right. But
that's the hardcore hood area code 63115. I don't know if we'll send Sean there. Sean, we love you, brother. I appreciate it so much. Hey, when we come back, we're going to be talking to Jim Talent, former U.S. Senator and chairman of the Reagan Institute's National Leadership Council. And then at 5:07, we've got a ticket giveaway. Jake Owens will give away tickets to that. Katie will do the honors with that. And, of course, at 5:24, Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Director at Red State and host of More to the Point podcast. Don't go away. We'll be right back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9, 94.1 News.
Weather Center.
Let's hope this pattern never ends, huh? Unfortunately, we know it will, but a beautiful day out there on this Monday. 75 degrees under sunny skies. Beautiful. Little breeze out of the east. Lows tonight in the 40s. A little warmer tomorrow, 77 up to 80 by Wednesday. A little cool front moves through here on Thursday. Very little, if any, rain anticipated. By the weekend, it will get cooler, though. I'm KMOB First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds, easy to install, guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop today and save Blindster.com. Stop and go southbound 270 Page to Doherty Ferry. There's accident St. Charles Rock Road at Woodson, northbound Route K south of Mexico Road and Highway Double D at Dardane Creek. Heavy volume eastbound 270 Lindbergh to New Florissant. Bumper to bumper eastbound 70 crossing the Museo Veterans Bridge. Westbound 64 slow between Kings Highway and Bellevue. And volume westbound 4064 from 364 to I-70. Southbound 55 jams between Lafayette and Potomac. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
She's a great conservative author, film producer, Nina May.
And I keep telling my liberal friends, I say, you think you're going to escape this? No, this is exactly what totalitarian governments do. They start with the low-hanging fruit, and then they're going to go after you because they can't trust you. No, we're going to have to line you guys up against the wall and shoot you.
Wow. You have liberal friends?
Vic Porcelli.
Live and local weekday mornings at 9
on News Talk STL.
Hey folks, Tim Jones here. Well, did you decide over the weekend that you need to sell the homestead? Well, I want you to stop what you're doing right now. Take down this number. It's that of the Wallner Home Selling Team at Berkshire Hathaway. 314-810 sold. Why should you call Rodney and Jen Wallner? Well, they're going to first of all offer you a very flexible commission plan. Just in time for these challenging times, tailored to your specific needs. They've got so many approved home buyers, they're going to guarantee to obtain you an offer. That's because they're selling 15 times more homes per year than your typical realtor. There's no obligation or any long-term commitment to any of the arrangements you set up with them. You can always walk away. I know you won't, though. You're going to have a fantastic experience with Rodney and Jen Wallner because they're a husband and wife team. They give you that unique family perspective, not just that of one agent. That is priceless right there, let me tell you. That's why you want to call them today. today at 314-810-SOLD. If you're even thinking about selling your home, call the Wallner Home Selling Team today for a free listing consultation. Sell your home with this top-producing real estate team, Rodney and Jen Wallner, 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD.
From home improvement to replacement, do-it-yourself electrical projects can be shocking. That's where Grasser Electric can help. They've been lighting up St. Louis for years. From ceiling fans and dimmer switches to repair or replacing your electric. No job is too big or too small for your home or business. Grasser Electric will even install emergency backup generators. So call Grasser Electric today before the sparks start to fly. 636-441-5200 or go to grasserelectric.com.
Fox News commentary.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, Governor Ron DeSantis issues a warning to those looking to take advantage. Get ready to applaud America's governor. Next.
Hi, I'm Lisa Booth for Bishop Gold Group. Are you worried about your financial future as retirement gets closer? All over the country, soon-to-be retirees are fearing for their financial future as markets remain volatile. Bishop Gold Group helps you invest in gold and gold IRAs to protect your wealth and retirement during times of high inflation and wild swings in the market. Secure your future today. Contact Bishop Gold Group by dialing pound 250 from a mobile phone and say the keyword Bishop Gold or visit bishopgoldgroup.com.
Aftermath of catastrophic weather events, some use the destruction, disarray, and instability to take advantage of stores, businesses, and homes, but not on Governor Ron DeSantis' watch. In a press conference, he made it very clear, you will not get away with looting in the state of Florida. DeSantis warned that law enforcement is on high alert and for good measure, reminded folks that Florida is a Second Amendment state. The Lee County Sheriff echoed the governor, saying there will be zero tolerance for those looking to take advantage of others. You will be hunted down and you will go to jail. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what leadership looks and sounds like. Imagine if that was a sentiment delivered during the Summer of Love 2020 riot season. No looting will be tolerated, no destruction, no violence. That would have been nice, right? Governor DeSantis has proven time and time again he is America's governor in Florida. You should be proud. I'm Tommy Lahren.
Conservative talk for St. Louis.
It's your patriotic right and duty. The government needs to step up and do its job.
This is News Talk STL.
It's well-balanced conversation.
News, analysis, opinion.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Our show, it is 4:28 in the afternoon, and probably my favorite part of the Monday show is our next guest.
Former U.S. Senator Jim Talent and chairman of the Reagan Institute.
Jim, you got the tux all pressed and ready to go up there on the Upper East Side.
I'm watching this and just wondering, who's running the show. The political logic behind it escapes me, and I've stopped looking for three-dimensional chess. I just think they don't know what they're doing.
And now, former Senator Jim Talent.
Katie, we're really privileged here today. We've got two honorables. We have the Honorable Paul Kurtman with us and the Honorable Jim Talent. Senator, how are you?
Well, I'm fine, and I bet Paul agrees with me. When you get elected, and of course, in the old days, we actually got mail. So that you get a piece of mail that says the Honorable Jim Talent. The first time that happens, you kind of get a kick out of it, and after that, it doesn't even matter anymore, right?
And you keep that title forever. Isn't that great?
Yeah, I guess you do. It's not that big a kick. I was walking out of the Senate one time, and I saw the boards up, and it said, Missouri, Bond, and Talent. I thought, that's pretty neat. I'm in the Senate. That happened once too.
Sounds like a good law firm, Bond and Talent.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed serving with Kit Bond. He was a great he's still a great man. He was a great public servant. I mean, he really. I'm going to offend Ashcroft and Matt Blunt, but he's the best governor in my lifetime. Kit was. He did a great job in his 2 terms. So we could talk a long time about Kit Bond.
Excellent. Senator, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in Iran. Iran is in the news after that young woman was tragically murdered by the morality police because she wasn't wearing her hijab properly. Iranians have been protesting in the streets. 50 have been killed. Are we watching the makings of a possible revolution in Iran?
Well, I'm not going to go that far, but I think this is a major problem for them. And I think it's compounded by the fact that something may be wrong with the supreme leader, Khamenei, because he hasn't been showing up anywhere. And in a time of crisis in a regime like that, it's important that, you have the leader around to make the big decisions. I'm reading that there's a lot of dissension among the other leaders about how exactly they ought to manage this. And if this is occurring at the time they're all maneuvering from a succession standpoint, it could be problematical for them. It seems to be pretty spontaneous. It's real. But no, I don't, I'm not looking for the regime to get overthrown anytime, but it does indicate it's not as stable as sometimes it appears from the outside.
Senator, I've been waiting to ask you this question because I saw earlier today a headline that says NATO intelligence warns allies about possible test of nuclear super torpedo by Russia. And so I looked into this, and it says that the super torpedo is an unmanned underwater vehicle that is said to be capable of traveling vast distances underwater before exploding with enough force to cause a massive nuclear tsunami designed to inundate and irradiate coastal cities. Is this something that we should work? Is this something that's ever been tested before? Because it sounds like Russia has one of these, and that's why NATO's putting out this warning because of all their talk and rhetoric about using nuclear weapons right now.
Well, Paul, I got to tell you, I haven't heard of that specific. It sounds like it's a tactical nuclear weapon. The Russians have more of those than anybody else by a huge factor. Nobody's quite certain, but they may have 1,000 in the arsenal. Their doctrine does speak extensively about using it. Now, what they say is they're going to escalate to de-escalate. In other words, they're claiming they use a weapon like that in order to cause the conflict to recede or to die down. But I know they're doing a whole lot of research on unmanned, including underwater unmanned. Everybody with the ability to do it is doing that. We're going unmanned. AI is going to I think substantially change the nature of warfare. But no, I can't say I've heard about that one. I have some friends who are real good naval experts, and I'll write them. And then next week you can ask me about it, and I can pretend I'm the big expert. I'll talk to them first.
Senator, during your service in the Senate and House, you served on the Armed Services Committee, so you're privy to a lot of secrets, a lot of tactical information, what the military would do if Vladimir Putin used a tactical nuclear weapon in this conflict. What would the United States do?
Well, exactly. I don't think. Okay, I'm going to be careful here. Whenever you're talking about nuclear stuff, okay, I mean, the typical answer will be, we will respond appropriately, taking and use whatever options we think we need to use in order to protect the security of the United States. It's called strategic ambiguity. Now, if I had to guess, I'd say there's a pretty good chance that NATO would respond by becoming directly involved in some way, possibly with a no-fly zone. I don't know how enthusiastic I feel about that. I kind of think the reason that he's talking about all this is that our current policy is working. And I think what I would do instead is I would simply maximize the current policy by sending things like ATACMS, which is an Army longer-range precision missile. It's like HIMARS, except with a longer range, and it would permit the Ukrainians to strike in Russia. It's a conventional weapon. There are other things that we could send as well. But the thing you hear most talking about is no-fly zone. Now, NATO would immediately go on high alert. It would be a very tense situation. I don't think this is very likely at all. I think he's rattling sabers because he's desperate. He threatens this periodically. I don't think we're going to see it.
Senator, there's been a lot of startling reports lately. I think just recently today I saw one where the military is very overwhelming when it comes to making its quotas. Something about their borrowing recruits from next year to make up for this year, which is going to leave them short for next year. How concerned should Joe Q. Citizen be about this?
Yeah, I think we should be very concerned. They're missing their recruiting marks by a lot, particularly in the Army. And I think there's a fair amount of this, I think, is the brand or the reputation that they're developing by getting heavily into this woke stuff. And not only the gender stuff, but the critical race theory stuff, which is terrible everywhere, but particularly in the military. The military is probably the most successful experiment we have in terms of civil rights, desegregation, and the reason it works is so well is because they're focused on the mission, which is defending America and its vital national interests. Everybody's a comrade. That's what you're supposed to see is people you're working with, comrades, colleagues, fellow soldiers, depending on what part of the military you're in, all supporting a common mission. And I'm concerned that that's hurting recruiting and retention. So the other thing is what's scarier to me is when they survey military families and ask them if they would recommend to the younger people a career in the military. That number is very low. I think it may be the lowest it's been since they tested it, and that's the problem because they do tend to recruit from families that already have a number of veterans in them. So yeah, it's a major concern.
Yeah, and that's my next question. We're hearing reports that Russians are fleeing the military draft. There's a report in the Moscow Times today that said that Russia's military veterans are saying we cannot win. I mean, how long can this war go on if your recruits are fleeing? And what is Putin's next option if the draft is not working?
Yeah, if reports are correct, 200,000 of the men who were concerned about being mobilized have fled to Georgia or Kazakhstan. Chris, Russia is not a mass mobilization army. They don't have the structure for that. The Soviet Union was, but they cut all that out. So they have to build a structure in order to assimilate all these new recruits at the same time as they're trying to conscript them. And they don't have the junior officers and the non-coms to do it. They never did. That's always been a weak part of the Russian military. But the ones that they have had, of course, have either, some of them have been casualties, and if they're not, they're fighting already. It's hard to train large numbers of new troops when you're already very thinly manning the lines that you've got. So this is a big problem, and I just think the ground is getting shakier and shakier underneath Putin. So you're seeing these mill bloggers. These are highly patriotic, veterans, and they support the war. They want Russia to wipe out Ukraine, but now they're going really public with their complaints about the Russian Ministry of Defense, and it's beginning to reach to Putin himself. He hasn't censored it yet, and there's all kinds of speculation as to why. He also does not have the same level of a censorship regime that, for example, the Chinese have.
Senator, the National Review had their big shindig last week at the Reagan Library out there in California. Did you attend that?
I did not. I was not there.
Okay. And Reagan Institute, tell us what you're working on currently at the Reagan Institute, sir.
Well, I co-chaired a task force on the National Security Innovation Base. I guess it's been a year and a half now since I did that with Bob Work, and we put out a report with a lot of recommendations in it. A number of them have been adopted, but we're going to update that now on a regular basis with a scorecard on how well the government's doing, because there's a lot of things we have to do to win this competition, if you want to call it that, with China. but advancing, getting ahead of them again across a broad range of technologies is hugely important, both obviously for military, but also for economic reasons. So we're focusing on that. I'm excited about it. And I will say, I think Washington is trying to come to grips with this, and on both sides of the aisle. Really, there's more activity in the Congress on this than there is in the administration. The administration is yet to come up with a Chinese strategy. There's different camps, and we don't seem to be able to, make the decisions and move forward. If you're thinking that's because, Biden isn't being decisive enough, or his judgment isn't good enough, you may well be right.
Senator, thank you so much for your time as always, and we look forward to talking with you again next week, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator.
All right.
Did we get a hang up
See
there?
you later.
Did we hear the hang up?
You know what? I didn't hear the hang up, but I might have gotten to him before he got off the phone.
When we come back, Chris's Corner, I'm going to talk about Joe Biden's big gaffe, but also the response from the Sunday news shows. There were a lot of crickets going on. We'll talk about that on the corner when we come back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Less than big box retailers. Shop Blindster and save 45% off any order. Just use the code radio. Offer in soon. ShopBlindster.com. Stop and Go Volume southbound 270 Page to Manchester. There's accident St. Charles Rock Road at Woodson, northbound Route K south of Mexico Road, and Highway Double D at Dardine Creek. Heavy volume eastbound 270 between Lindbergh and New Florissant. Eastbound 270 also backs up at Illinois Route 203. Your bumper-to-bumper eastbound 70 crossing the Museo Veterans Bridge. Volume westbound 4064 between 364 and I-70. Southbound 55 jams Lafayette to Potomac. And construction backs up eastbound 64 at Illinois 161. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
Let's hope this pattern never ends, huh? Unfortunately, we know it will, but a beautiful day out there on this Monday. 75 degrees under sunny skies. Beautiful. Little breeze out of the east. Lows tonight in the 40s. A little warmer tomorrow, 77 up to 80 by Wednesday. A little cool front moves through here on Thursday. Very little, if any, rain anticipated. By the weekend, it will get cooler, though. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This is what's happening.
Secure border.
This border is a disaster. Massive chaos that's happening.
Interest rates remain high.
News, analysis, opinion.
What comes next?
Got some news for you.
This is News Talk STL.
Columbo here for Agers Heating and Air Conditioning. We trust Agers with our home because their number one priority is doing right by the customer. Temperatures are changing outside, and as we transition from warmer temps to cooler ones, if you have any issues keeping your family comfortable, don't wait. Call the great team at Agers so they can address the issue before it gets worse. Because whether it's repairs or replacement, Agers is there with the clarity and attention to detail your home deserves. Contact Agers now at 636-242-6515 or through their website, callagers.com.
10-year-old George Haruza and his parents, with only what they could carry in a suitcase, made a daring escape from behind the Iron Curtain of communism. George Haruza and his family risked their lives fleeing communist oppression to secure the freedom and promise of America. George Haruza quickly learned English, studied hard, and worked harder. Overcoming every hurdle in his way, George Haruza is now a world-renowned surgeon, educator, and physician leader.
So I do believe in a limited government. Governments should provide for the people who are really in need, encourage everybody else to rise up to their potential, and then mostly get out of the way.
Now George Haruza wants to bring his record of getting good things done to the state Senate and George Haruza understands the mission. George Haruza for State Senate, a record of getting good things done. Paid for by Haruza for Missouri.
Stay top of mind with your customers, stand out from the competition, and drive productivity with a podcast for your business from Epic STL Podcasts. Log on to newstalkstl.com and click on the Epic STL Podcast button to learn more.
The Vic Borselli Show.
Tuesday at 10:41, we will talk about a Texas law that is helping social media users fight big tech censorship with Scott Shepard from the National Center for Public Policy Research.
Weekday mornings at 9
on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
There's no room.
It's beautiful Monday, October 3rd. I guess we are officially into the fall weather. And as we talked about at the beginning of the show, it's a beautiful day, but you can feel a little bit of that nip in there. That's why I broke out the winter cashmere pullover a little bit. It's keeping me warm. So, last week Joe Biden did another gaffe, but this gaffe was way beyond what we're used to. He was calling out for a person that is deceased. He seemed to have no idea that she was deceased. There was a big uproar over that by the Karine Jean-Pierre, his press secretary. Her answer did not suffice. And so it was a story for about maybe a day and a half. You thought that, hey, maybe the media is really going to start focusing on this now that the president has dementia or some type of cognitive problems, and maybe they will become journalists again and follow up on this. Well, they didn't. And you would think with the Sunday shows, with a whole hour, there'd be plenty of time to talk about that. They didn't. And we'll talk a little more about that here on Chris's Corner.
Chris.
The whole thing is a joke.
Good God, we gotta do something here, people.
It's not personal, it's strictly business.
My favorite black leader of all time is Frederick Douglass, who asked after emancipation, well, we just freed the blacks, now what are we going to do with them? And his answer was, leave us alone.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
Republicans and conservatives have been decrying for years that the media is biased, that they have a liberal slant. We've seen surveys they've done of journalists when they were asked what their political affiliation was, and they were overwhelmingly liberal. They're biased, and we know that, but most of them don't even know that they're biased, or they'll claim that they are not. And so I think this last instance of the president calling for a dead person, basically, and not knowing it, I think really called out the problems that he has and shows that the media is covering up for it. As I said, it was about a 2-day story, and then all of a sudden, nothing. It's over. I religiously watch all the Sunday shows. I think there's about 5 of them. There's 3 on the major networks. There's Fox. There's MSNBC. There's about 7 or 8 of them that I watch, or I listen to, rather, on podcasts. And out of all of those shows, there was only one mention about the president's gaffe. And the only show that mentioned it was Meet the Press, and it was about a 1-minute reference where the moderator, Chuck Todd, said the president had an issue last week about Ms. Walorski. He forgot that she was deceased, and then he asked one of the panelists, how would you have handled this situation? She took about a minute and a half to answer how she would have answered, and then that was the end of the segment. That's all that was all that they talked about that.
Pathetic.
You know, if this would have been Donald Trump and he would have done something like this, that would have been the content of the entire show. He touched on it. He asked, "Hey, how would you resolve this?" Let her answer, and then they went. To show even more pathetic of how the mainstream press is, USA Today, this is almost laughable, that this is how they covered for the president. And I'll read you this. I can't even make this up. I shuddered when I learned that President Joe Biden had called out to a crowd in search of a congresswoman who died nearly 2 months ago in an automobile accident. He's going to turn 80 in November, and let's face it, this seemed like a memory fail, a particularly embarrassing one. Yet there's another way to look at this. Biden was trying to credit the late Indiana Republican Representative Jackie Walorski, a lawmaker who voted on January 6, 2021 to object to his presidential victories in Arizona and Pennsylvania, and in this March labeled his agenda radical and reckless for her good work on nutrition and hunger. So basically, because he misremembered that this woman is dead, that it's gracious that he mentioned her because she had been unkind and said disparaging remarks to him. This is what it's getting to, these people. This is how the level that they will go to try to cover up a president of the United States who obviously has dementia. This is absolutely pathetic. And, you know, it also shows, too, that they helped elect this man. And you would think that with all the signs that he is showing, that all of this Hunter Biden stuff is going to come to the fore when the Republicans take over the Congress. You would think that they'd be trying to line up and try to get him out of there. I think they are still going to do that after the midterm elections. But it's the point that they would go to these lengths to try to still uphold this president. I should be shocked, but I guess I'm really not, because this is our modern day lamestream media. And so if you want to talk more about this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. 314-912-1019, 314-912-1019. And Katie, that is Chris's Corner for today.
I just think it's absolutely insane that we have a president that would make such a baffling, I don't even know if it's a gaffe. Yeah. I don't even know if it's a gaffe.
Can I ask this question? So they're saying it was gracious of him because he was going to mention her in spite of the fact that she said negative things about him?
They say that it's gracious because even though he misremembered that she was dead, it showed her professionalism to still mention her because she had disparaged in the past. It goes further. Listen to this. I forgot to put this in the corner. She says, and this is the columnist here is Jill Lawrence. She's a USA Today columnist. She says, it's unfortunate that he made the mistake. At the same time, it demonstrated a generosity and professionalism that was also present in Biden's Tuesday conversation with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a frequent and harsh Biden critic, as Hurricane Ian bore down on his state. So I guess this man is senile, but because he says nice things about people that he doesn't know is dead, that is a professionalism and courtesy that his Republican counterparts don't give to him, even ones that are deceased.
So a couple of years ago, President Trump was introducing Black History Month, and one of the things that he said was he was naming off several Black historical figures, and he mentioned Frederick Douglass, and he says Frederick Douglass has done an amazing job. And like I could look back at like biblical history and say Moses has done an amazing job, you know. Well, they talked at length about that. I heard Whoopi Goldberg talking about it. Doesn't he know he's dead? Yeah. Frederick Douglass has been dead, and then for however long. Like they talked about that at length.
That's a good example.
For something that like it wasn't even a mistake. He was saying Frederick Douglass has done an amazing job, but not in the sense that he's alive, but he
impacted history.
He impacted history.
Can I name drop a little bit about that event?
Let's do it.
Becky and I were there.
Oh,
wow. That Black History event.
What did you think when he said that?
I said, yeah, I'm in the White House and I'm looking around.
I don't care what he says.
That's how I was. Wow.
That is such a good example.
Yeah, that's how I was.
That is a great example of being like the way that people pounced on Trump, but probably any Republican president, if they had one slip up, if they had one moment of maybe not clarity.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say like a gaffe. If they just had one tiny, if they replaced has with have or something like the effect of what you're saying.
I'll give you an example.
Go ahead.
Kafefi.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Trump owned it after that, too.
He did own it.
But it was Kafefi.
Yeah. They were like, oh my God, he's senile. What is that supposed to mean? He's crazy. We need to do the 25th Amendment. Kafefi.
Immediately jumped for a constitutional amendment to remove him from office.
Because no one knew what Kafefi meant. So,
right. Still don't. Like, what in the world is it? Like, that's like going to be a mystery that's going to bug me till I die.
You know what I think it is? I think he was reading from a teleprompter. And it was coffee, and he just said kafefi.
Didn't he tweet it out? Didn't it come out in a tweet?
You know, I think you're right.
It was like one of those 3 a.m. tweets. It was like, what in the world is this?
Yeah, I thought he had written, or he was reading something, and it's like, instead of saying coffee, he said kafefi.
If a reporter, this is one question that I'd be okay with the left wing asking, like, sir, what was it?
Yeah.
What does it mean? Where did it come from?
Yeah, what exactly does kafefi mean? Yeah, this is... the lengths, as I said, these people will go to defend this guy and say that he is it's a professionalism that he can give courtesies to dead people that disparaged him.
Remember when he asked that one guy to take off his glasses and he was blind? Remember that?
I don't.
But we played the clip with the wheelchair when he told Chuck Graham.
Yeah,
remember he told Chuck, "Stand up, Chuck." Oh, good Lord, God love you.
One of the presidents said something to somebody about them wearing glasses and they were blind.
And it's like
it's probably Biden. We can find it somewhere.
But you know what? That instance that we played last week with the wheelchair incident, which is exactly what our caller just wanted to talk about.
Chuck Graham.
That was when Biden still had a little bit of his faculties.
Yeah.
Like he still had a little bit of like. I mean, he wasn't what he is now, which is crazy to think about.
But was the guy actually sitting in a wheelchair?
Yeah. Yes.
So you ought to be able to see that this guy's sitting in a wheelchair.
I mean, you remember? Were you in the legislature with Chuck Graham? He was a state rep.
I don't think so.
From Columbia
I don't believe
area,
so.
I think. Yeah, he ended up terming out, but he was in a wheelchair. And
crazy.
This was September of 2008, so he was running for Vice President Barack. So as Katie said, he still had kind of his faculties there. He said, "I'll never. God love you. Sorry, Chuck. Let's stand up for Chuck. Stand up for Chuck."
And rub it in.
Oh, my God. Hey, when we come back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show, we're going to have the ticket giveaway, and we'll have Susie Moore. 1019, 94.1, News Talk, STL. Welcome home.
Since 2007, the state of Missouri and local governments have handed out almost $5 billion in tax subsidies or abatements to private developers. That money could have gone to basic services like schools and public safety. And studies show these subsidies don't produce the promised jobs and growth. If developers want to build a sports stadium or shopping mall, why should they be given our tax dollars to do it? It's time to reform economic development subsidies. The Show Me message has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
I'll second guest dinners with friends because they can be interrupted by diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or oily stools. It turns out I have EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, which means I'm missing the enzymes needed to digest food. My doctor prescribed Creon, pancrelipase, an oral prescription medication that replaces pancreatic digestive enzymes. Creon treats EPI due to cystic fibrosis, chronic pancreatitis, pancreatectomy, or other conditions.
Creon may increase your chance of fibrosing colonopathy, a rare bowel disorder. Tell your doctor if you have a history of intestinal blockage or scarring or thickening of your bowel wall, if you're allergic to pork, or if you have gout, kidney problems, or worsening of painful swollen joints. Call your doctor if you have any unusual or severe gastrointestinal symptoms or allergic reactions. Take Creon as directed by your doctor and always with food. Do not chew capsules as this may cause mouth irritation. Other side effects may include blood sugar changes, gas, dizziness, sore throat, and cough. These are not all the side effects of Creon.
Creon is the #1 prescribed EPI treatment. Ask your doctor about Creon for EPI and visit creoninfo.com or call 800-633-9110 to learn more. That's CREONinfo.com.
This is what following the crowd sounds like. All subscribing to the same ideas and opinions they are told to.
I'm a Democrat. I'm a proud, tree-hugging, kumbaya-singing socialist.
But this is someone who thinks for themselves.
And I have to go do my own research because I don't get the other side of the story.
So if you like being a step ahead of the crowd,
why are we not calling these idiots out?
Then you're in the right place. This is News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at
newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Rescue and recovery efforts continue in the wake of Hurricane Ian in Florida. Florida's Army National Guard spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Blake Heidelberg says that guardsmen have been helping with over 1,400 rescues and are now working on disaster relief and security.
We currently have about 5,200 of your fellow citizens, our soldiers and airmen, mobilized in the impact area supporting over 11 counties. Obviously, we're in the coastal areas and in the inland flooding where we're focusing efforts. But today our major focus is the barrier islands as we've transitioned from the search and rescue missions.
And Ian was still not done. The storm doused Virginia with rain Sunday, and officials warned that major flooding was possible along its coast today. Ukrainian tank units fighting Russian forces in the Donbass are holding their line despite the Kremlin's attempts to illegally annex the territory around them. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
A Ukrainian T-64 Soviet-made tank fires while camouflaged in trees. Units have kept up patrols in their Russian-built tanks, some of which they say are captured from a Russian unit. The city of Bakhmut lies within the Ukrainian-controlled area in the Donetsk region, very close to the border with Luhansk, which remains entirely occupied by Moscow. An overwhelming majority of Bakhmut's civilian population have left the city that has come under regular shelling since June. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Planned Parenthood has a new gimmick. The abortion group announced plans for a mobile abortion clinic, a 37-foot RV that will stay in Illinois but travel close to the borders of adjoining states that have banned the procedure since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade earlier this year. A good day on Wall Street as they rallied. The Dow rallied up 765 points. The Nasdaq rose 239. The S&P advanced 92. More at townhall.com.
Relief Factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
Hi, my name's Adam Barada. I'm the owner of Advantage Gold, the highest rated precious metals firm in the country. Now, we've won the Best of TrustLink Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with my latest national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds, easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop and save big at Blindster.com. Heavy volume eastbound 270 Lindbergh to New Florissant. You're crowded southbound 270 from Olive through Manchester. Westbound 64 slow Kings Highway to McCausland. Delays westbound 4064 approaching 364 to I-70. There's a crash Highway Double D at Dardine Creek. Wrapped up an accident northbound Route K south of Mexico Road. You're jammed solid eastbound 70 crossing the Museo Veterans Bridge. Construction backing up southbound 55 between Lafayette and Potomac and eastbound 64 at Illinois 161. Now an accident reported in that backup. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
Let's hope this pattern never ends, huh? Unfortunately, we know it will, but a beautiful day out there on this Monday. 75 degrees under sunny skies. Beautiful. Little breeze out of the east. Lows tonight in the 40s. A little warmer tomorrow, 77 up to 80 by Wednesday. A little cool front moves through here on Thursday. Very little, if any, rain anticipated. By the weekend, it will get cooler, though. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
Michael's Flooring Outlet is a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years, featuring exclusive products, unbeatable prices, and expert installation. You can choose from a wide variety of flooring options, including carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, plus many other options. And you'll gain a peace of mind knowing that your flooring and carpet installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michael's. You can shop in-store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home online. Check out everything Michael's Flooring has to offer at igotfloored.com.
Oh, Adam, you are so romantic. And I love the kitchen you found with all these great crumbs.
Yeah, baby, only the finest crumbs in the kitchen for my favorite aunt. Oh no, it's the pest control company again with those green wheels. They always kill the mood.
This is Derek, the owner of All Solutions Pest Control. Give us a call today at 636-486-7888. We'd love to help you out. Learn more about our special $67 offer. You can visit us online at allsolutionspestcontrol.com.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
Listen anytime.
It happens anywhere, everywhere.
Every day continues to bring more news
with the News Talk STL app.
Keep St. Louis's home for conservative talk with you wherever you go.
Download the News Talk STL app in the App Store
or at newstalkstl.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
And welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. It is 5:06 on this beautiful Monday, October 3rd, 2022. And as we were coming back into the show, let me say my partner Tim Jones is out. Paul Kurtman is joining us today. Tim will be back tomorrow. But coming into the show, we were talking last hour about Joe Biden's gaffes. My astute co-partner guest picked up on the latest Joe Biden gaffe on TV. What happened, Paul?
Oh, where he was speaking in Puerto Rico. I guess he's just trying to connect.
And he said he's
with
from
Puerto Ricans and said that he was raised in a Puerto Rican community
in Delaware.
I don't get he was raised in a Puerto Rican community in Delaware. He was the only white guy working in all black lifeguard swimming pool.
What was the brother's name? Honeycomb?
Corn Pop.
Honeycomb. I'm thinking of cereal. Honeycomb.
I just have such a hard time
when does it get to the point where you're just like, make it stop?
Listen, his
mind.
When
does it get to that point?
I think his mind left before he realized exactly what the internet is. Because this is what I think. I think we can see a glimpse into the past of how politicians used to be, where they would just lie to anybody, anywhere about anything. And Biden hasn't gotten the memo. Anybody can fact check this in 30 seconds.
We can Google you.
He's like, I'm the president. No one fact checks me. I guess.
That might be a good point.
I don't know. I want to remind our listeners that, our show ends at 6:45, and then in 15 minutes, that is the O'Reilly Factor. And at 7, you want to stay tuned listening. At Joe Pack's show at 7 and 8 p.m., he will have former President Trump on as a guest. So you definitely want to make sure that you're still listening to the great programming here on News Talk STL. Kate, I've got another piece of housekeeping to do.
Yes, sir.
Tim Jones and I will be at the St. Louis Young Republicans Freedom Fest barbecue. That is their second annual YR Freedom Fest barbecue. Try to say that 3 times. That's right, yeah. We're going to stand against tyranny, strengthen the conservative movement, and enjoy tasty barbecue. That's coming up Sunday, October 9th. 2022 from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Lunch starts at 11:30. It's going to be at the St. Louis County GOP headquarters. That's at 794 Gravois Bluffs Drive, Fenton, Missouri. Special guest speakers are going to be Congresswoman Ann Wagner, Senator Bill Eigel, Representative Mary Elizabeth Coleman, Holly Jones, Attorney General Eric Schmidt, and the next senator from the state of Missouri, hopefully, Senator Andrew Koenig, Representative Nick Schroer, Dr. George Haruza, and Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, Representative Jim Murphy, Ben Brown, and LaVonna Robley. Adult tickets are $30. Students are $20. Kids 12 and under are $5. Save $5 on adult tickets if you register by September 26th. You can get more information at stlyrs.com/events. I hope that a lot of you can make it out on Sunday, Tim, and I always enjoy meeting all of you that help keep this station on the air. And last but not least, Katie, do it.
We have a ticket giveaway, people.
Oh, yeah!
Jake Owens, he's extending his just announced headlining Up There, Down Here tour, multi-platinum country star. He is adding the Family Arena to his fall dates, so that's really exciting. We love working with the Family Arena. They are awesome people down there. Amazing venue in St. Charles. That's where I had my high school graduation. With Mercury Nashville's Travis Denning. So let's go ahead and say caller 7. If you call right now, we'll give you a pair of tickets to Jake Owens at the Family Arena, October 14th, 2022. The show time is at 7 p.m. and the doors open at 6:30. That's again October 14th at 7 p.m. And for more information, go to familyarena.com. We'll go ahead and give that pair of tickets away to caller number 7 for Jake Owens.
Caller number 7, 314-912-1019. Those tickets have your name on them. Just be caller number 7, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
You know, we were talking about, the strategic oil reserve, how it has been depleted, Paul. I think we're down to 21 days left in the strategic oil reserves. Normally, it has 50 days worth of oil in it. You know, the administration is playing a really, really dangerous game, letting the oil reserves get this low. Plus, with us being in hurricane season, I mean, Paul, what would happen to gasoline if we had a direct hit in the Gulf of Mexico and the Houston, Louisiana area with all those refineries and all those oil wells, strategic reserves are depleted? I mean, this is a dangerous game to be playing, considering what's going on over in Europe with Russia, and the fact that we're still in hurricane season. Right, we're still in the kind of right in hurricane season. So, I mean, it's just a dangerous game to be playing for the president to use this really as a campaign tool to try to lower gas prices right before a midterm election. Exactly. And there's talk now that OPEC Plus, this is the OPEC with Russia, they want oil prices, Paul, back up at $100 a barrel. They are talking about, in the midst of all of this, cutting back oil production. Mm-hmm. This is what happens when we put the ball in the court of somebody else, right? Or in the hands of somebody else. We have the ability to do so much more drilling, get so much more crude oil to these refineries, and supply fuel. You know, you have to use fuel until you get to the point where you don't need to use fuel anymore. And we're just not there. And this is an administration that's just trying to force this green energy upon us. And so we wind up in this situation now where now we need oil and we don't have it because of the green agenda of this administration. And we're reaching right for our strategic oil reserves. This is like people, I'm a financial advisor. Sure. This would be like me telling somebody, hey, I know you could just use your regular income. I know you could pick up some more hours at work, but instead of doing that, just go out and dig into your emergency cash supply and just dwindle that down to nothing. It is the same poor advice to give, terrible choice for the president to make. And, you know, I'm about as urban as they get. But it's kind of also an example of, they say, when you're a farmer and everything, using your seed corn instead of what your other corn. And you can tell I don't know much about it. I'm struggling here, Paul. We know where you're going. I'm like, Paul, help me. We know where you're going. We know where you're going. But isn't it, you don't use your seed corn, right? Yeah, you don't. Listen, it's just like this, right? You don't put the cart before the horse. There's an expression. You don't use something that you don't use something that you're using for an emergency unless you're actually in an emergency. Mm-hmm. And so I think the Democrats right now are seeing that gas prices have posed an emergency situation for them for the majority of the summer. And so they've used that to justify them reaching into our strategic oil reserves rather than just
making it more easy and feasible and efficient for people to drill for the oil that we need.
You know, I think the green energy zealots have called my bluff. I've always said that, you know, I will be a proponent of green energy when you can run an aircraft carrier or send a rocket to Mars on vegetable oil and all that green water, whatever. There was a maiden flight recently, Paul, of the first all-electric plane. Would this be something you'd be interested in? Is this the future? An electric plane?
I have flown through too many clouds to find any confidence in flying on an electric plane.
That's a battery. You know, it's not running on solar panels, Paul. It's running on batteries.
Oh, it's just running. That's it.
So you're worried about the clouds and thinking, no.
I have driven. I have had too many remote control vehicles go dead on me to feel confident about flying on an electric plane.
I would never, ever, ever fly in a plane with solar panels.
There's something about a rumbling engine that lets me have confidence that this thing's going to go, and if there is any kind of malfunction, you know, we'll be able to refuel. We'll be able to get this or what. Here's the other question. I have seen military jets refuel in air as they're flying over the ocean or on long-range missions. How do you refuel if you're flying an electronic jet or an electric aircraft?
I think what it would probably is the refueling plane would have this long boom arm that would come out. It would eject the battery from the back, get rid of, and then the other arm would come out, and it would be like a plug-in thing. And the battery...
we need a really long extension cord.
Work with me here. That the battery is kind of a plug-in kind of deal, and so while the plane is flying, another plane comes out, boom, pulls that battery out, another arm comes in, plug it back in, you're good to go, buddy.
What did I walk into?
We're trying to figure out how electric planes refuel midair.
Yeah,
other planes do.
Yeah, I was saying, Katie, you know, I've always talked about I will never grant green energy any credence until they can power a rocket to Mars, or you can power a submarine or something. Well, the first all-electric airplane made its debut over the weekend.
That's right.
And I just want to get your thoughts on
did it have a battery?
Electric airplane.
Was it battery or was it solar?
It was battery.
That scares the day. I mean, it scares the daylights out of me to, not saying that I wouldn't, but like to not know where to specifically go to recharge a car. You know, there's only some designated areas that you can go to charge your car.
Right.
How long does that last? What if you're stuck in traffic? I mean, I'm sure that a lot of these questions were asked whenever the first automobile that was running on gasoline was...
No, because they went from buggies to cars.
That's true. There was a step-by-step process. But when we're talking about being in the air... And I mean, that's already like a hairy situation. But if you're saying we're solely battery operated, that's not happening for me.
Yeah, I don't know if, and you know what, I should have read more about it. I don't know if it was a turboprop or propeller, or if it was can you run it? Do you think a jet could be run on electricity? I don't
know enough about it to know how much energy it takes to run a jet versus just like a regular prop. I just know this. If I'm on a jet and all of a sudden everything goes quiet, I'll get nervous. If I'm on an electric airplane and it's all quiet, like you never know.
Yeah.
Like, have we just lost an engine?
We don't.
Is it still spinning?
Yeah, it's true.
What's going on?
How would you know that? I don't know. I mean, I would give everything a try. I mean, it would have to have like a 7, 8, 10-year track record of...
And I would have to have a parachute.
Yes.
Yeah, personal parachutes provided. See, already, you know what? That makes me just like, no. If that's what has to happen for me to feel safe, absolutely not. But is that where we're going to be going? Do you think that a lot of these airlines will kind of sign up, like commercial airlines, will they sign up for something like an electric airplane?
You know what, that's an interesting question because, you know, jet fuel depends on the market. It goes up and down. I know a lot of these airline companies, they buy their fuel way in advance and buy it, you know, cheaper because they're buying in advance. And maybe they could save a bunch of costs if it's just an electric battery. But I look at, you know, when your Tesla needs a new battery, that's $20,000. So how much is a new battery for a new jet? Is that worth? I mean, because a lot of these people are getting these Teslas and they need a new battery and they're junking them. They're like, it's not worth.
Or what about the
20,000?
What about the I mean, well, I guess aircraft already have like autopilot, right? Like they can basically take off and land themselves.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of what Tesla's trying to do. But even Tesla's like running cars into bridges.
Yeah. Okay, this is before your time. When you said the autopilot, I just got that 1980 airplane movie in my mind about the co-pilot with the blow up doll.
Oh, God. No, I know the movie Airplane.
Oh, okay.
I know the reference.
Oh, one of the funniest movies of all time.
It's funny.
Class. I haven't seen
baby.
it in a while.
A little raunchy.
Yeah. Do you speak jive?
You know? Let's just smooth on over
You don't
there.
speak jive? No, okay. When we come back, we'll be joined by Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Editor of Red State, host of More to the Point podcast, and she'll be your co-host with Paul Kurtman on Thursday when we come back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk.
Let's hope this pattern never ends, huh? Unfortunately, we know it will, but a beautiful day out there on this Monday. 75 degrees under sunny skies. Beautiful. Little breeze out of the east. Lows tonight in the 40s. A little warmer tomorrow, 77 up to 80 by Wednesday. Little cool front moves through here on Thursday. Very little, if any, rain anticipated. By the weekend, it will get cooler, though. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Want to save big on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Shop Blindster and save 45% off any order. Just use the code radio. Offer ends soon. Shop Blindster.com. Slow eastbound 270 Lindbergh to New Floors and heavy volume southbound 270 between Olive and Manchester. Slow westbound 64 Kings Highway to McCausland, and then your jam westbound 64 from McKnight to Ballas. That's where they're just wrapping up an accident from the right lane. Pockets westbound 4064, 364 to I-70, wrapped up a crash, Highway Double D at Dardane Creek. Slow westbound 70 between routes A and Z, eastbound 70 lines up crossing the Museo Veterans Bridge, and an accident blocking the right lane westbound 44 before 270. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
News, analysis, opinion.
There's still anti-science and anti-governance.
Democrats offer a vision for a better America.
He's losing support and enthusiasm among the base.
101.9 and 94.1.
You're going to enter a problem.
News Talk STL.
If you are on Medicare, you need to listen to this message. Open enrollment for all Medicare participants starts October 15th. This is a very critical time of the year for you to make needed changes to your plan.
This is Mike Butts with MB Health Insurance Agency. Regardless if you are new or renewing your health insurance, the process can be confusing and very time-consuming. MB Health is local here in St. Louis, and we will handle your enrollment quickly, properly, and effectively. Find us on the web at mbhealth.com.
MB Health can also help small businesses find the perfect medical coverage for their employees. That's mbhealth.com.
Hey, I want you folks to be always prepared for whatever situations life may throw at you. And I know these are very challenging times. And that's why I want you to check out our good friends at the Range St. Louis West. Look, even if you've never picked up a firearm in your life, the Range has the knowledgeable staff of former and current law enforcement, military, professional shooters with real-world experience to help you make whatever purchase is right for you. And look, everybody is welcome at the Range, and they've got all different kinds of people working there. They work with you. They don't talk down to you. They have the best training classes in the region, hands down. They have the best training value for new and experienced shooters. It's great training at a great value, and their membership plans, best membership value for all of you frequent flyers as well. The Range has a beautiful facility. It's located right in the county of St. Louis, right in the heart of the county on Manchester Road in Baldwin, right next to the Baldwin Police Department. And when you go in there, you see a beautiful showroom floor, the awesome classrooms downstairs, 20 lanes over 3 climate-controlled bays, offering new and experienced shooters and everybody in between a great place to train away from all the elements as we head into fall, and you know winter is coming. Check them out today or anytime 24/7 at therangestl.com, therangestl.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Our show, we have Susie Moore, but before we get to her, we're going to take a call from John. John, how are you, sir?
Oh, just fine. I just thought of something. I've got Ryobi tools, like a saw, a drill, radio.
Yes, sir.
And they just work fine. This is the modern batteries. Everything's just going along fine, and boom, it just quits right there. Nothing. You have to have another one ready to go.
How long did you have your product?
I've had the things for about 5-6 years.
Probably.
And it's all lithium, all the lithium stuff. Now, I can remember the car batteries back in the 60s. If they were starting to go dead, you could charge them up. The new batteries, though, if it says it's a 3-year battery, then that when that third year approaches, it just, boom, it dies. I had several cars. I went too long, and within that 3-year period, boom, the car doesn't start anymore. You have to go have somebody go and get you a battery and stick it in there. So trying to have the modern batteries in airplanes and everything else, these things are just going to quit.
I agree. Katie and Paul and I, we ain't down with that electric battery airplane thing yet.
Oh, no, it's going to quit right on the middle of you. You need to have a glider.
Exactly, or and a parachute.
Yeah, definitely.
John, thank you for calling and listening, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye.
And our aforementioned guest.
Oh, Susie Q. Oh, Susie Q. Baby, I love you. Susie Q.
I'm the boss. How about that? I'm walking on sunshine.
And as she does every Monday, Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Editor of RedState.com and host of More to the Point podcast. Susie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic.
Doing great.
You know, I know you and Tim call yourself recovering attorneys, and, that's great. But on days like this, when it's the opening of the Supreme Court, especially a historic Supreme Court with the first African-American woman on it, are you kind of paying attention today, especially some of these cases they've decided not to hear?
So the answer to that is yes and no. I'm interested, but the reason I'm not paying close attention is because today was technically the day 3 of a little mini vacation that I took. I just drove back from the lake today.
Okay.
So I haven't been as tuned in as I might otherwise have been. However, on the way to the lake, I did listen to the SCOTUS 101 podcast, which gave a nice preview of this term and the cases that they're going to be looking at.
And one of them was Mike Lindell. He was suing, wanted an appeal regarding the 2020 election lawsuit that I think that it was filed against him. He lost that. Why do you think the Supreme Court decided not to hear that?
I've not looked at the coverage of that or their actual order, which I'm going to assume is relatively brief. But usually when they decide not to take a case, it's because they decide it's just really not within their purview to decide. It's just doesn't raise a question that really requires their involvement. And, a good Supreme Court is one that doesn't unnecessarily inject itself into to matters that don't really require its jurisprudence. And this may just be one that doesn't really fall under what they feel like is a new question or something that they need to get involved with.
I see trending on Red State, the number 2 article, but I'm sure it was number 1 at one time during the day, is Elon Musk, and I haven't heard this, has proposed a internet deal or a peace deal with Ukraine. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, he sort of thinks out loud on Twitter. He sort of sees it as, and it's interesting to watch. But apparently, he posted a poll that was like, "What do you think?" And I can't remember what all the different parameters were, but it was basically just a tweet suggesting, what might be a final resolution to the conflict in Ukraine, redoing elections of the annexed regions, Crimea formally becoming part of Russia, Ukraine remaining neutral. So he threw out these suggestions, sort of his little thinking out loud thing, and as a poll, and of course the we're for Ukraine because we know it makes us look virtuous when we signal that we are for Ukraine crowd got all up in arms about it and was taking it as somehow him voicing support of Russia, which he's been, he's actually gone out of his way to help the efforts in Ukraine, making the Starlink satellites available to them, that sort of thing. So it's just kind of silly.
Susie, your latest article on Red State is about Eric Schmidt, who is running to be the U.S. Senator for Missouri. And your title is Eric Schmidt's latest ad shows he's willing to put in the hard work for Missouri in the U.S. Senate. I wanted to see if you could discuss the ad first and foremost, and then talk about your opinions and why you believe that he's willing to put in that hard work for us.
Yeah, it's just a 30-second clip, and it just shows, it kind of draws a contrast between Schmidt's background and Trudy Bush Valentine's background, and talks about, his dad and his grandfather, their work histories, and, how in college, how he worked at Grant's Farm, kind of taking out the trash and basically, doing physical work, and contrasting that with, Trudy Bush Valentine, who is an heiress to the Bush fortune. And then he just kind of outlines, here's what I've done in my, role as Attorney General, and why I've demonstrated that I'm, willing to work hard and fight for the people of Missouri. It's a very short ad. It's not even a negative ad. It's just basically like, here are my strengths and how I'm a contrast to my opponent. So I thought it did a nice job of sort of hitting the high marks.
I think you did a good job bringing out you have a quote on your article. You quoted some of the points in that ad, and probably the one that really sums it up the most, like the one that really hits home. And there's no doubt in my mind, this is probably one of the focal points of the ad that everybody weighed in on, all the consultants, is when he said, in college, I gave tours and took out the trash at the estate Trudy Bush Valentine grew up on.
Yeah. So it's a subtle jab. It's the little bit of class warfare there, but it's legit. I mean, it also shows that they just have very different backgrounds, and you've got a pretty stark contrast in their experiences, their life experiences, and what they're going to bring to the table.
We had the Missouri Democratic chair on last week, and he swears up and down that she's going to run a strong campaign. She's going to spend the money, but as we've seen, she's almost been absent, and it's almost like they've given up.
We're a month out from the election. If she's gonna do it, she might gonna be.
Yeah, it's about time, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of the, I want to a couple of these cases that the Supreme Court is going to decide, and I'll just read you the CNN headline. It says, Supreme Court to hear cases that could decide future of internet speech and social media. And I just want to read the descriptions of the two cases and get your opinions on them and what it will mean for the internet. Susie, one case is Gonzalez versus Google. It is set to consider whether tech platforms' recommendation algorithms are protected from lawsuits under a commonly invoked legal shield tech companies have used to nip other types of content moderation suits in the bud. The other case is Twitter versus Tamna will decide whether social media companies can be used for allegedly aiding and abetting an act of terrorism when the platforms have hosted unrelated user content that generally expresses support for the group behind the violence. That sounds like what's the guy that's have the suit now? That Alex Jones. That sounds like that's directed at him.
It could very well be. I mean, those are both really interesting. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of each of those particular pieces of litigation, but it sounds to me like the court is sort of gearing up to address this. I'm not going to call it the elephant in the room because it's being talked about, but there's this donut hole, if you will, of uh, accountability and responsibility from the tech companies that wasn't really considered when they first came into being, and when they were given this sort of exempted status. They're not treated as publishers, so they're not held to the same standards, and yet they're acting in a lot of ways as publishers. And you have to decide, I mean, how responsible are they to be held if they're holding themselves out as an open forum? Should they really be held responsible for what's placed on their platforms? But by the same token, if they're not responsible for them, then should they be able to censor it, particularly if they're doing so at the behest of government?
And what scares me, Susie, I think there is legislation that is pending that has support from Democrats and Republicans that is supposed to rein in some of the power from these tech companies. If you're familiar with what I'm talking about, I mean, can we trust them coming together? I mean, it's probably for two different reasons. I mean, Republicans think that they're biased, and the Democrats think that they don't protect groups enough. It's a strange partnership in a sense.
It is a strange partnership, and it's always one of those things you have to be leery of. It's like, who are you granting what power to?
Right.
Because you might think, oh, it's going to be beneficial from my perspective right now, but when things change, the political climate changes, that may not always be the case. So, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Susie, last week we learned that hurricanes are racist and that they target particular communities of color. They also are engaged in class warfare because they also seem to attack trailer parks and lower income areas.
I thought
Did you know that hurricanes were racist and do that?
No, I didn't learn that in school. I feel like I was really, shortchanged on my education because I didn't learn that. Here's the thing. There's a kernel of truth there. Obviously, people who live in low-lying areas and who live in less economically developed areas are going to be more affected when you have a significant storm that comes through and wipes everything out. So, but to attribute it, I don't know. It's more of the silliness that we see from the progressive left.
I just want to know, when are we going to see hurricanes named LeBron, Tyrone, or Latrell? I think you could sell right there.
That's fair. That's a fair question.
That is a fair question.
LaQuisha. I mean, when is there going to be a Hurricane LaQuisha?
To Chris's question though, Susie, I do have to ask you, why did the vice president take this opportunity to stress how important it is for us to concern ourselves with equity and not equality whenever we're talking about a natural disaster, a hurricane that has nothing to do with politics? And yet we see someone like our vice president take the opportunity to say, this is why we need to focus heavily on equity and not equality. We also simultaneously see someone like Amy Klobuchar say, if you vote Democrat in the midterms, we'll help out. We'll help you not have hurricanes, basically, if you vote for Democrats in the midterms.
Apparently, the Democrats are in league with the Cassadines from General Hospital and control of the weather.
Oh, you took me back on that one. The
Little throwback there. No, it's one of those things. It's never let a crisis go to waste. That's part of it, for the rhetoric. And then it's more of Vice President Harris doing her. I'm going to give you a word salad that sounds lofty and meaningful, but it really doesn't have much meaning at all.
That is her. Susie, what do you got coming up on Red State? Anything special? And, in this, I was meaning to ask you this last week, but I ran out of time. I know we're coming up on the election. We're 37 days out. What special things are Red State doing election-wise?
Well, we're certainly covering, all of the polling as it gets reported, and there are some debates being held this week. Not a lot of debates, not as many debates as we would expect, but there are some debates that are being held. So we're covering those sorts of things. When we get to the actual night of the election, we'll have full coverage of that. There'll be a kind of like a live blog thread that'll have the updating results, kind of dialed into decision headquarters. And so there'll be plenty of coverage on that, particularly as races are called, that sort of thing. And as far as, we've got a pretty broad spectrum of topics up today. One series I do want to highlight, Bob Hogue did a two-part series on LA business owners and how they are really just getting raked over the coals by their local government. Instead of getting support from their local government, they're basically being left out or hung out to dry. And they're dealing with, a significant homelessness problem, and having an inability really even to secure the safety of their patrons and their employees, and they're reaching out for help to their local authorities and getting basically stonewalled. So he really does kind of a deep dive on it, and it's unsettling. I mean, he's talking about the fact that there's basically drug parks in Sherman Oaks, California. So you've got an area of California where you've got property values, homes valued at the $1.5 million plus mark, and around the corner is a set of 6 or 7 RVs with people just living in them without any sort of repercussion.
I've been meaning to ask you about our colleague Kira Davis, Red State colleague Kira Davis. That school board race, did that happen, or is that a November race?
It's November 8th.
Okay,
it's November.
Give us a little update on that.
Well, Kira decided finally to throw her hat in the race and get involved. She's got a daughter who's still in high school in California, and she's been out there fighting the good fight and an activist from a grassroots level for years. And she finally decided she was going to put her money where her mouth is, so to speak. And so she threw her hat in the race, and she's facing a tough challenge because the second she announced, there were people coming after her. And the amount of money that's required just to run a school board level campaign in California is unbelievable.
I can imagine.
But, she believes very, very much in what she's doing, and, standing up for students and parents and pushing back against the teachers unions and sort of the draconian policies that California school children in particular were subjected to.
And Red State has conducted a poll for her, right?
No, we have not done that. No, we don't have that level of, that granular level of stuff, although it'd be great. I want to get to the point where we can conduct school board polls.
I'd be very curious to see how she's doing, because I've seen some of the Twitter trolls. I mean, this is a school board race, and she's got Twitter troll accounts saying fake Kira Davis or something like that. I'm like, it's a school board race, people. It's not that serious.
It's unbelievable. The saving grace is she's in a somewhat conservative area.
Oh, good.
But it's still not a guarantee. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination. So she's pulling out all the stops to try and make sure that she can win that election. So follow Kira. She talks about it a lot on her Twitter feed, and you can kind of keep up with how the race is going, and feel free to support her.
That was Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Editor of Red State, host of the More to the Point podcast, and her Twitter handle is @SmoozyQ. And Susie will be co-hosting with Paul Kurtman this coming Thursday on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show.
Right.
So I guess you say this in the radio business: break a leg. I guess that's
Chris.
a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Okay. Thank you, Susie.
Thanks. Have a great evening.
Thank you. And when we come back, we'll have one more segment this hour. I have no idea what we'll talk about, but we'll find something here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Blindster. Want to save big on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Shop Blindster and save 45% off any order. Just use the code radio. Offer ends soon. Shop Blindster.com. Accident on the westbound 70 ramp to Highway 79. Heavy westbound 64 through Hampton. Earlier crash westbound 64 before Ballas. Accident cleared eastbound 64 at Hanley. Volume westbound 44 at Big Bend. And they cleared the accident westbound 44 before 270. Bumper to bumper southbound 55 from Park to Potomac, northbound 55 heavy into the Poplar Street Bridge, eastbound 70 jams crossing the Museo Veterans Bridge, accident southbound 270 south of Ladue, and a crash Newhalls Ferry at Dunn Road. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm News 4 meteorologist Leah Hill with your first alert forecast. Evening activities, I'm giving you the thumbs up for it. We'll have starry skies and temperatures slowly dropping into the 60s, eventually bottoming out at 48 degrees. That's what you'll be waking up to early tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's temperature is a little bit warmer than today, mid-70s, and we do have 2 warm days ahead of us, Wednesday and Thursday, before our next cold front arrives. And that's been your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Leah Hill.
The news and talk that affects St. Louis.
Raised interest rate by 0.75 percentage point. Nothing short of bad. Vladimir Putin threatened
not to ease tensions, but to escalate them through the threat of nuclear weapons.
This is 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hi, this is David with House Sold Easy, and I buy houses cash. If you own a house and you want to sell it fast at a fair price, call me at 314-293-3000. I pay cash and close in as little as 3 days. I buy houses in any condition, any price range, and any location in St. Louis. I'm a private real estate investor who buys several houses a month, and I want to buy more. I buy inherited houses, divorce houses, behind in payment houses. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. Do you own a house that is trashed and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, because I love buying junk houses. I buy vacant houses, abandoned houses, condemned houses, and foreclosure houses. If you own a house and you want to sell it fast, call me at 314-293-3000. That's 314-293-3000. 314-293-3000.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Money Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on St. Louis radio for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. You can hear Doug and Safe Money Radio 3 times every weekend on News Talk STL. But in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeMoneyRadio.com. What else do our listeners need to know, Doug?
Simply put, I focus on helping pre-retirees and retirees build, preserve, and protect retirement assets, and I've been helping my clients solve their insurance and financial needs for the past 33 years. I also strive to educate my clients on how to prepare for retirement, minimize the impact of market volatility on their assets, and deal with the challenges of increased longevity. Call me today at 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233.
Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities LLLP, member FINRA and SIPC.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
How would St. Louis County and the St. Louis region be different if Mark Mantovani wins the election in November? We're going to hear from him on Tuesday's program.
Mornings starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Free down. You're free. Say she. Free down. Free down. You're free. Say she. Free down.
Just very similar. But I'm going somewhere, speaking of music. You know, during one of the breaks, we were talking about these bands, how a lot of them are selling their music catalog for hundreds of millions of dollars, some of them close to $1 billion. One of my all-time favorite bands, they sold their catalog last week. That is Genesis. The 3 members reaped a big windfall. And at first, and I'm not an artist, creative in that aspect, but I kind of looked at it, and Katie, you're a singer, you're an artist, you can understand this. At first, I looked about that great body of work that they've done, and yes, they're making $500-600 million. They're giving them that, but you give over rights to your creative work like that. And at first, I didn't understand it, that aspect of it. And then I was like, well, you're still getting royalties and things. Why don't you just keep those royalties forever for your heirs and heirs and heirs? But the music industry has changed so drastically that with Pandora and all these streaming services, they're literally paying these artists pennies on the dollars from what they used to make. So from an economic sense, Paul, it makes sense to sell your catalog for $6.
Sell it.
Like screw sentiment.
Man, if you can take a lump sum and just invest that money for your heirs.
Yeah.
I mean, these people most of them are probably already pretty well off, you know? So we're talking about, do you want to make a little bit more money or do you want to make a lot more money right now? I say make a lot more money right now.
I would be very sentimental about it, though. And I get it. Like, you're right. Like, sell it for whenever, to make a pretty penny while you can at this moment. But that would be a hard thing for me to let go of whatever my life's work, my life's accomplishments are. Like, we gave the example you did, Paul. Like, some people write their things in 5 minutes. Like, they put together these lyrics and they're like, oh, this is genius. And then other things you work on in the studio endlessly, albums you work on for years trying to perfect it. I think I'd have a hard time parting ways.
But it's not going away. I mean, it's still out there. You just don't.
It's not mine.
But it's just
You don't own it. Well, it is. Like it'll always be attributed to you, right?
That's true.
But you just don't own it. And there will come a day where people just don't listen to it anymore.
Yeah.
There will. I mean,
forgotten.
Elvis, the Beatles. There will eventually come a day where all this stuff is just forgotten, and you're just. I mean, who really knows who the singers are of the 20s and the 30s and even the 40s, right? But even back then, people had record albums and everything else. So there will come a day, there will come a time. I know it seems impossible, but it will. Take the money.
Now, what I'm wondering is these bands that have sold their catalogs, these are bands that have been around 30, 40 years. They've been able to build up a following, build up a catalog. They were able to sell it for that type of money. But I'm wondering, besides someone like Kanye or Jay-Z, yes, they can sell their catalog for billions of dollars. But these new artists that are coming out that are not getting paid as much in royalties, and maybe they do have hits after years, but in 20, 25 years, will they be able to sell their catalogs for $500 or $600 million? Can some of these artists today, do you think they could sell their catalogs for $600 million?
I think what makes the value of your catalog go up is not just the music itself, but you also have to make a serious impact on culture. Like you have to be one of those people that goes down in the history books. Maybe, I mean, look, Elvis sang a lot of other people's music, right? Yeah. But he was also the first in a lot of areas. So if you're an artist today, you got to have something more than just a catchy tune.
Is Genesis on that level?
I don't know.
I love Genesis, but
I agree with that. I think you do have to have some kind of substantial impact, and it doesn't necessarily that has changed even so much. Your impact, what you can do with social media, how people receive you, all of that has changed so much that we're comparing. Like, I love Justin Bieber. I know, people. I know what you're thinking in your heads. I get it. Belieber. But, his impact for me growing up, because he was one of the pop stars that I listened to when I was 15, 16, 14. His impact on my generation is so completely different than a brand new artist that's out right now. That's they're using auto-tune.
And there's so many of them.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
All you need is a YouTube channel, an Instagram account. Anybody can get their music on iTunes. Yeah, and anything. So, I mean, it's just become so much more competitive. Everyone's trying to find a way to break out, but it's like the field's just been flooded.
Yeah.
Some of these people I'm looking up that have sold their catalogs, I didn't know had sold their catalogs. David Bowie, I knew that. Bruce Springsteen, I didn't know he sold his catalog. Bob Dylan, I knew he sold his recently. I think his is the most ever. I think he got $800 million or something for his.
Louise.
Stevie Nicks.
Oh, oh my God.
Shakira.
Oh, go Shakira.
has recently sold her catalog. So that looks like that's
Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney sold. He sold it to
Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. See, he sold it and didn't know who was buying it. A lot of these people, I don't know how they do this, but the way he tells the story is Michael Jackson made a joke about buying it, and he was like, ha, 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 and then he found out Michael Jackson actually bought it.
Did buy it.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That's what's funny, these people who have beef with each other, and they'll try to buy each other's catalog.
Just to be spiteful?
Just to be spiteful.
Katie, who was that who got screwed over because they didn't have the right contract on
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, what was the deal with that?
So
What was that?
Taylor Swift, and this is what's sad about the industry. This is where it gets like really snaky and like, just
Shady.
vicious. But Taylor Swift signed her contract with one of these record labels. I think it might have been Capitol Records. I can't 100%, or Big Machine Records. She signed it really, really young. And she probably didn't have the money, her and her family probably didn't have the money to afford these really top-notch lawyers like Taylor Swift would now. So she signed this contract, and along with this contract, she signed over all of her music to Big Machine, one of these record labels. So she made her first 8 albums because that was part of her contract, and that they got to keep them, then switched labels. And Scooter Braun, which is a huge producer, humongous freaking producer, came in and bought the record label and bought her records, like all of the possession, all of the rights, everything. So that when Taylor Swift moved on to her other record label, she wasn't allowed to bring that catalog, those 8 records that were like platinum mega records with her. So she created a loophole. Sorry, everyone, this is long. She created a loophole where she is now re-recording all of her first 8, 7, 6 records, whatever that Scooter Braun took. And she's tweaking them just a little bit. Same lyrics, same everything, but she's tweaking them to be like in studio, different musicians, all of this other jazz, because that's the loophole of her repurposing and then owning her music again.
So when she left, went to this other label, was she allowed to like continue to sing that music like at concerts?
I don't know. And I think
So
that was part of it.
That's a problem. Like, so what you're talking about not being able to let it go, like you would, it seems to me like if you're the artist, no matter what, you should always be able to sing music you wrote.
And I don't know. That's such a good question, because I think that has something to do with why she started to re-record and re-release those 8 albums, because I don't know if she was able to perform them or not.
I mean, you got to read what's in these contracts. The first thing that I heard about music companies being shady with the whole deal with Prince, when he still had to make a couple more albums with Warner Brothers, but he didn't want to, so he ended up like changing his name to something that you can't pronounce. And I remember when he finally came back, says, "I'm Prince again."
I mean, these people own you.
Yeah.
They own you. They own everything you've ever done. And if you don't have the right staff or the right lawyers because you're just trying to get in the game, every breath that you take, they own until you accomplish your 5 albums, 6 albums, whatever you signed on with them. They have you locked in until that's completed.
Because I heard years ago that, a lot of people think if you're a big musician, rap star, or whatever, you're making just tons of money off of the records. Like, you don't make anything off of the records.
Barely enough to buy all those gold rings.
Exactly.
That chain. Ooh,
yeah.
It's like where the majority of your money comes from touring.
Yes, it does.
95% of it is from touring. The other 5% is from record sales. There's no money in record sales anymore, and probably why these guys are selling their
I told Vic
selling their catalogs.
To call in. I said,
I'm surprised he didn't call in and give us some
topic. Vic, call us in. But now we're going on to our 6 o'clock hour.
We're going on our 6 o'clock, but again, you want to stay tuned to News Talk STL, because at 7 and 8 o'clock, the Joe Pags Show will have former President Donald Trump, so you do not want to miss that. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Welcome home.
And you too will be sold. It's called a freak. They're doing it night and day. Allow us, we'll show you the way. Oh, freak out. The freak, so chic. Freak out.
10-year-old George Haruza and his parents, with only what they could carry in a suitcase, made a daring escape from behind the Iron Curtain of communism. George Haruza and his family risked their lives